Hello, my friends, and welcome to this reading on you and your inner circle. Now, this part of the reading is a little dark just because I wanted you to be able to see this, because when I turn on the light, it just flashes it out. But the rest of the readings, once you get to your readings, it'll be a little brighter so you can see things. But yeah, go ahead and pick your reading here, your pile. Once you're ready, the timestamps are down below in the description. I'll see you at your reading. All right, hello, pile 1, to this reading on you and your close friends and the advice on the matter. So let's start out, as I always do, with the disclaimers, which is that I cannot make up truths for you. Please do not allow for me to make up truths for you. The tarot readings, any general online readings, should only be confirming what you already internally know. If anything is new, it should only be new because it makes sense to you. Like, if I do say something new, it should only be like, but yes, that makes sense what you're saying. It shouldn't, don't take something that I say as something that I'm predicting for you, or that's not really my intention with any of the readings that I do. So if something that I say doesn't apply to you, it's for someone else watching this reading. That doesn't negate the rest of the reading. The second thing is that I cannot give you advice. I am just a stranger on the internet doing these readings for no compensation whatsoever. So I'm not really in any way, shape, or form capable of giving you any advice. I'm not any type of professional. So I can't help you make any decisions or choices or anything like that. This general online reading shouldn't really be doing that either. Only you can make your decisions. Only that's really, your life is up to you. So what this general online reading, and any of them should be, again, is a confirmation of what you already know. That all being said, this first part of the reading is about you, your place, who you are in the friend group, and the friend group itself, at least what I can be told about it for this reading. So with hero, heroine, and the liberator here, you hold incredible power and energy within your friend group, whether you're aware of it or not. You are regarded as a hero and a liberator. And the thing is, two separate decks, but they carry very similar energy. If I'm not mistaken, this Oracle of the Roses deck does have one that says hero, but the liberator is heroic energy, because a liberator it implies that there is something or someone to liberate. And that's a heroic act, to free, to break shackles. It happens in so many stories, right? Where there's like some sort of damsel in distress or someone who's oppressed in some way, shape, or form, and then our hero comes and liberates them. So it's, I'm not making the assumption here that your friends think of you as this superhero who's going to come and break all their chains and end all oppression or anything like that. Rather, how it's really coming through as is because hero, heroine, the words that read in the light attribute, mind you, with this deck, if it comes up reversed, then I read the shadow attribute, but it came up upwards. The light attribute reads passion for journey and personal empowerment. So this card with this last one over here, Moon Goddess statue, and I'll get to that when I get to it, give me this idea that you, in some way, shape, or form, at some point, did remove yourself, or you have removed yourself, not for whatever reason. I'm not going to make any assumptions there, but there's this purpose to you removing yourself, for isolating, and there was empowerment, enlightenment that happened in that isolation. And what you've come back with, this new, it might be that you've changed, you've transformed. When you learn certain things, you do transform. So this new person that's come back to the table with them, they acknowledge the value and the value of what you've learned, but also the value of the transformation, because there are some people who are threatened by your okay, wow. I don't see anything in these cards saying that like there's someone in your life that's threatened by your transformation. But the thing is, when there is transformation, certain people don't like that. Within this friend group that you're asking about, it isn't like that. yeah, I'm really not getting anything. All of this is super positive. So at least within your close friends, your inner circle, which is who this reading is about, there's no one who's threatened by who it is that you've come back as, if you're worried about that. So, okay, back to how I was saying, yeah, it's not that they see you as like a superhero with this cape and you have like the power to end all oppression, but rather it could be either A or B or both. A, it could be that this transformation, this level, they see it as a level up where it's been such a huge transformation that it's inspirational. On the like an inspirational as in like it because that's inspiration is kind of a liberating energy where it liberates us from stagnancy. It's like the light bulb going off. It's like, yes, this stagnancy has ended and now we have an idea to go off of. So A, this transformation is regarded as like super great and it's inspirational. B, things that you've said that reflect this wisdom, this enlightenment that you've gained, have really shaped and changed, liberated the way that the way that I'm seeing it is kind of like liberating from ignorance. And that sounds kind of mean, but like, not that your friends are ignorant, but just, like in the literal, most technical form of the word, where, just not knowing. And something that you said kind of like might have even gone as far as like breaking a certain form of thinking, a certain thought pattern where you had the right words to kind of make sense of someone's confusion. And it's like, I never thought about it that way. Or what you really said something there. So it could be A or B again, A being it's inspirational, this transformation. B, the way that you're expressing this wisdom and enlightenment is actually changing the way that people think and feel. It could be both of those things. That's the way that you regard it in your friend group. The friend group itself, what I'm getting, one, it could be very old. This could be like a friend group that you've had for a really, really long time. Maybe as far back as childhood, not necessarily, but just this is a well-established friend group. And yeah, sure, your close inner circle should be that way, but it just, with Kingston Mansion, because it's, just for some context, this deck is Scooby-Doo and Steven Universe. There's other cartoons available, but these are just the two that I picked up. And Kingston Mansion is the location that's shown in the intro, like with the song Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And that, like, what that gives me is, one, this is an old ass show. It's from like the 60s or 70s. And sorry if you're from that time and I just called you old. No offense. It's just, it's classic. It's traditional. It's well established and well known. And so that's kind of that energy that I'm getting with the friend group, right? Where it's well established and well known. It's something that goes way back. And if it's not that, since it's the imagery that I was getting also when I was looking at this card, since it's part of the introduction, is, how in some introductions, especially with old TV shows, the introduction shows all the characters and it like shows their names and it's like this few seconds just depicting that character and their traits. And so when this friend group is like talked about or regarded, or when they talk amongst themselves, you are part of, that's how central and staple you are to this friend group. Where you're part of, like, if your friend group were a show, that introduction would have you as a central part of the introduction. Like, you'd be one of those characters with your own little frame and your name and, your characteristics like splashed on the screen. Strawberry Battlefield, it's spoken of in terms of legend, where, all these great battles happened here and we return to it throughout the show. This isn't Scooby-Doo. This is, the last two cards are from Steven Universe. And so what I'm getting, like, it adds to that idea of like how important you are to this friend group. Because it's like anytime that they're here, they talk back to like the Great War and the great victories that they had and the great losses that they had. So this idea of like when the individual people in this friend group go out to their other friends and other places and other relationships, and they talk back on their life, you are included in those stories. Yeah, sure. This card also means that when you guys are amongst each other, you share stories of like, remember that time and this time. It kind of came through intuitively, and if this is true for you, I am so very sorry, but it could also be that there have been losses in this friend group, and that's really brought you guys closer, but that's something that was a group wound. And if it's not someone that you all lost collectively, it could be that loss is something that you all are bond over, like you've each had a significant loss and you guys just know what loss is, and that's something that you guys kind of lean on each other for. So Strawberry Battlefield giving this idea of you're spoken of in high regard when these individuals go out into their other relationships and talk about their lives. You are spoken of as kind of like a legend to kind of echo this idea of hero and liberator. And also just there could very well be losses or a loss that has been experienced by this core friend group, or you guys bond over that, your knowledge of loss, and you might very well also rely on each other or have relied on each other through those things. Finally, with Moon Goddess Statue. In this episode, they're supposed to take this figurine and place it into this special place, and if they don't do it at the exact time under the exact moon phase, the whole place is going to crumble, and like they'll have to wait 1,000 or 2,000 years or however long before it reforms this place and they have another chance to place this thing again or whatever. I don't really remember, but the main character, being kind of a goof, forgets the statue at home and it's destroyed anyway, so it's all for nothing. I'm just giving you that context so that you understand that this figurine is so important and so highly regarded, but it isn't valued correctly by the right person. So that could be possible for you in this friend group, where in the past that could be why you left, where you, as you were changing and transforming, you started to see that you weren't being regarded, respected, valued in the way that you were starting to realize you needed to be. If that's not true, it could be that, that could be true, but if it's not, then what is true across the board is that what's come back, or this transformation, now that value is now given. That value is now understood, because later on in the show, once the character has matured, he finds this again and he feels really, really guilty about messing all of that up. Because he was just being silly and he didn't take it seriously. So there's a recognition of value for this that had to be learned. So if it's not true that you weren't fully respected or that you left because of that, then what is true is that now your value definitely is regarded. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't valued before, but it's just that now who you've come back at, it's really made an impression on people. It's really made people realize, I really don't want to lose this person. We really need to make sure that this person sticks around and is I really want this person to be a part of my life. And that was true before, but again, there's something about your transformation that's really turned you into something of a treasure, something of a gem, something that's regarded as something that I cannot lose. I don't know, think about, this might be a bad example because fuck capitalism, but just to kind of give you an example, let's say there's this old baseball cap that your best friend gave you back in 3rd grade. And you've held on to this because it's I've known this dude since 3rd grade and this means so much to me. And, now you guys are adults and you guys, or at least your friend has your best friend, you guys are still best friends, and he's made a lot of money and he's real well off in life. And for your 30th birthday, he buys you a car. And so sure, that baseball cap is really important and really valuable, and that's always going to be true. But now there's this thing that's like a little more important, like more valuable to you, because it's a car that you can like, you know, can get you places, and that you can be like, hey, my best friend got me a car. So it's just, there's this difference of value, this grand, like the value that you are presenting now and that's being regarded by your friend group. It's like, it's impressive how much that value has shifted. So yeah, that's you and your friend group. We'll move into the rest of it, which is tarot and Lenormand as advice for you in regards to this friend group, which, let me just say, like, going into this reading, I wasn't really sure what I was going to get, because, you know, sometimes we need help. And like, you know, not that like all friend groups are bad, or, you know, but it's like being human and being in relationship is very often like, there's as much, being human is as much good as it is like annoying. So it's just, I'm just, it's incredible to have this as the starting off point. Because I guess I was a little worried that I was going to have to like give advice as to some shady things going on. But this is such great, incredible energy to start this reading off with. So thank you for being here, first of all, for picking this power and for letting me do this reading for you. Because believe it or not, like tarot readers really do need this energy too. So thank you. Let's move into the tarot portion. I'll move these cards out of the way. Okay, so there are, the first three cards here are saying one thing that's true for all of you. And these last two cards kind of fork off where there's like two camps, and both of them could be true for you, but there's one part that's specific to some of you, not all of you. And we'll talk about Lenormand at the end. But it kind of concretes everything that's said in the first part. So actually, no, let's start with Lenormand, because it's just easier and it kind of is a good way to introduce pretty much what's being said here. Pumpkins is this deck's version of Cross, child and then house. And cross is a burden that we bear. In the past, it echoes what was being said with this first half, where there's something that you went through in the past, whether it's something that you went through with this friend group or something outside of it, where there was this cross that you bared and you transformed. It's that transformation that we're talking about. And that's what child here is talking about. This new you, this new thing, this new wisdom, this new knowledge that you carry, this new you that you are. And house is you maintaining this new thing that you have, this new person that you are, maintaining those things and what that looks like. And it kind of being, I mean, it's a chore, but because she's cleaning, right? But it's something that you're glad to do because you recognize the value of it, because of what you've gone through in the past to gain this new you that you're happy to now maintain. The Ace of Pentacles is, again, that new beginning that we're talking about. And I do want to point out that it is coming up reversed. And how do I know that? Simply because of the signature. It's on the reversals on this side, where on the upwards, it's on the bottom. But I do want to point out how whether upwards or you can't really tell. This card is meant to be symmetrical, and I'm pointing that out because no other card is really like that. This one isn't the same way if you look at it reversed, because of this card in the center and the flowers. It's just not meant to be symmetrical in that way. The swords, the flowers are definitely symmetrical, but the swords themselves are not. So it's not the same upwards or backwards. or reversed rather. And these two hold figures in them, so they're of course not symmetrical, but this card is. So whether upwards or reversed, what I'm really interpreting from the fact that that I chose a deck for pile 1 that has an Ace of Pentacles that looks the same, whether it's upwards or reversed. I'm interpreting that as this new beginning being that impressive, that much of a good thing, that even though it might have been a trial, even though it might have been really gruesome for you, it really grew into something really, really good. So moving from that Ace of Pentacles into the Seven of Pentacles, how I'm interpreting the Seven of Pentacles, since it's a Marseille deck, I am doing that thing where I'm connecting the 7 to the majors, and the 7 is the Chariot, and the Chariot is moving successfully from one phase into another because of your capacity, because you've proven your skill and that you are ready to take on more, to move on to harder things, kind of like that level up that I was talking about. If you're familiar with video games, when we level up, we can do more. We can explore new areas of the game, or earn new skills, or whatever the case is. We just become capable for more. So there's that. On top of this being a new beginning, it's you growing. It's you being capable for more and being capable of more. So yeah, that's what I'm getting from these two Pentacles cards, and we move from a 7 of Pentacles to an 8 of Swords. And so we're moving numerically upwards. It's a perfect progression. That to me indicates how things are flowing for you. Kind of to go back to video games, and if you play Assassin's Creed, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you don't, let me explain it real quick. At least in the first couple of games, the point of Assassin's Creed is that you, one of the characters, again, this is in the original ones, the first few, you get to go back in time into the past because of the main character's bloodline. So you get to access like his ancestors through his like blood, and so there's this machine that he gets into, and then you can access those memories, so to speak, because they're in his blood, because they're not really memories, and then you get to go live that ancestor's life, and that's the point of the video game. And instead of you dying or you losing health as you are progressing as that ancestor, you desynchronize. And the way that that's kind of explained is that since that ancestor's life is already told and it's already established, you can't really veer off that ancestor's course of life. Because if you do in the game, like if you do something that that ancestor wouldn't have done, you desynchronize. You did something that that ancestor would have never done. So why I'm explaining that is because in life, when we are really abiding by the laws of the universe and divinity, or just really in tune with ourselves and, not being influenced by outside influences or negative ones rather, when we're in tune with the right flow, we're in sync. We're in sync. We're synchronized. We are in harmony with the universe, or with life, or with ourselves, whatever it is that resonates for you. And this perfect progression, where we have these Pentacles cards here, and then we have that perfect progression from 7 to 8. Where you're at in life, and it very well might be part of that wisdom that you've gained, is that you're just, whatever flows, that's where you're at. And if it doesn't flow, you're kind of moving away from that. And where this shift, where we're moving from Pentacles energy into a Swords energy, Pentacles being the material, physical, everyday realm, Swords being the mental, internal realm. This is something that, because you're seeing the physical evidence of your transformation in your life and in this friend group, you are now able to then start to integrate this reality into something that's part of your mentality. What do I mean by that? You're starting to normalize this new phase of life. You're starting to settle into it. And a big part of it is because your friend group is regarding the value of your transformation. So this is all a very good thing. The 8 of Swords, yeah, attributing like the Marseille to the major, and the 7 would be, sorry, the 8 would be justice, because it's a Marseille deck, so it's not strength, it's justice. They switch places. And justice is, I mean, when we think of justice in today's day and age, it's about, you know, a consequence for someone doing something wrong. And justice doesn't necessarily always have to be about, you know, punishing someone for something wrong, but rather consequences. Cause and effect. This thing happened, and therefore this other thing happened. And so that's goes in flow with that, like what I was talking about, where because this transformation happened, because you're settling into it, because you're getting the evidence of this transformation, and that, you know, it's being well regarded, it's now being normalized in your mind. You're willing to integrate it internally, mentally, swords. So justice, because of that, you're now able to do this. On top of that, of interpreting the 7 and 8 as in connection to the major attached to them, to that number, I did take kind of like a moment to remember what the 7 of Pentacles and the 8 of Swords look like in the Pamela Coleman Smith imagery. And in the 7 of Pentacles, we see someone who is pretty much regarding their crop, what has sprung up from their harvest, from their planting season. And so this idea of what has sprung, like this Ace of Pentacles, and now you are in this place where you are regarding what it is that has, you're harvesting, you're reaping what you've sowed, and what you've sown is all of this transformative work that you've been doing. And so now you're getting the evidence of it with the 7 of Pentacles. And the 8 of Swords depicts someone who is blindfolded and very haphazardly bounded, like it's not very tight-fitting rope around their body to like restrain them, and there's these swords around the figure to kind of like imprison them. But the thing is that, again, they're not tightly bound, so they can very easily shimmy out of their bounds, and the swords aren't closely enough placed that like this person can't just walk past them. So this idea of an oppression that it's very easy to unoppress from, or get away from, or end rather. And that echoes back to that idea of liberator that we had earlier, where your presence and what it is that you're providing, it's not just for your friends, it's also this comfort that you're settling in, that your friends are reflecting to you. It's disarming you, it's showing you that it might like it might be like a soothing thing to realize that you, maybe there was a worry in the past that you were going to be, you know, these people aren't going to love me anymore because I'm so different, or maybe the things that I think now aren't going to be well accepted, or the things that I want to say, you know, because it's so different from who I've been in the past, and maybe it's in direct conflict to the things that I've said in the past and that these people have agreed with. Whatever the case is, that idea of being there and realizing that it wasn't what you thought it was, and or that whether it's for you or the people around you, you are providing this this realization that what they feel that they are under, what they can't overcome, they can, or what you feel you can't overcome, you can. And it's because of this friend group and how you're regarded, and what's going on with you and your friend group and everything that's going on there. Whether it's that, if it's you that's, you know, feeling more comfortable and feeling liberated, it's because of the comfort that this friend group is providing for you in their acceptance of you and your transformation. And or what you are doing in your friend group is providing this realization of the 8 of Swords to your friends, where they realize that they can do what they thought that they couldn't. So, okay, that's true for all of you. Where we branch off here with these two, Camp A, and this is just for some of you, there might be an individual or individuals who exist outside of this friend group, who you really need to stay away from, whether you know that or not. If you do know that, this is just confirmation and extra confirmation that, yeah, you really don't need to be around people who really pull you away from what it is that you've learned and from your transformations, really. It could very well be also that who we're talking about is an individual with whom you have been romantically involved. Why do I say that? Because of the King of Cups. Now let me say, and I say it every time that he comes up in one of these readings, I have the hugest crush on this King of Cups. Look at him. So dreamy, so hunky. I love him. Regardless of that, the King of Cups is someone who is very isolated. The cups are emotions, and so the King of Cups is someone who is emotionally isolated. And the thing is that that isn't necessarily a bad thing. When the King of Cups comes in a reading upwards, I definitely interpret it as someone who has this emotional intelligence that allows for them to see what is their emotional matter and what is someone else's. And why that's important to know is so that we aren't over-influenced by other people's emotions. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be considerate of other people's emotions, but there are definitely times when it's really important that we aren't influenced, or that we don't over-prioritize someone else's feelings when we really should be prioritizing our own. And the King of Cups knows, the King of Cups upwards definitely knows when that's true and when it isn't, when to prioritize someone else's feelings and when to not allow someone else's feelings to overcome ours and our boundaries and our own feelings if we really need to prioritize them. Reversed, then, I definitely interpret that emotional isolation as emotional unavailability. And given everything we've been saying about you, about, you know, you being heroic and a liberator and very well regarded in this friend group and everything that you're providing for your friends, it could be that in the, well, okay, spoiler alert, the second interpretation is that this is about you and that in the past you might have been emotionally unavailable. But let me not skip, let me continue with this, you know, if this is about a specific person in the past, that emotionally unavailable individual in the past. That's why. Because of the King of Cups upwards is about emotional isolation, reversed then it's emotionally unavailable, and that it's a king. In any reading that's about relationships, I definitely regard any court card as an individual in the relationship. But I'm definitely not picking up that this unavailable king is someone within your friend group. It could be, and this could be advice as to, like, this person maybe you're realizing, maybe it's part of the transformation that you're bringing into this friend group is realize that, like, your presence and what you're providing is really showing this friend group who it is that they want to include in this friend group and who they really shouldn't, who's really not worthy of all of this, what's really going on here, this good stuff that's growing. Whatever the case is, there are definitely people or an individual who is emotionally unavailable, who doesn't belong within this inner circle. And if it's not that, then it's definitely that you guys moving forward need to be careful that of who you allow into this inner circle, into what it is that you guys have together, because it is sacred, it is important, it is special, and it is transforming everybody's lives, everybody who's involved in it. So preserve it, treasure it, and guard it. Gatekeep that shit, because people suck and people get jealous, and if the wrong immature person can look at what you guys, that beautiful thing that you guys have going on, and be threatened by it. So just be careful. And so if it's not someone moving in the future, it could again be someone in the past that, like, you just need to stay away from, just because it could take away from what it is that you have going on here. The Pope, which is the Hierophant reversed. The Hierophant traditionally is about unions, particularly marriages. I'm not getting that here at all, but the Pope here definitely does echo that idea to me, or concreted that idea to me, of this being an individual of the past, someone that you've been in connection with in the past, whether as a friend group as a whole, where this emotionally unavailable person is someone that you guys have all been connected to as a friend group, so that this is a friend who has sucked in the past and who you're now being told leave them out because they're going to continue to suck. And if it's not that, then it could be because it's about marriage, that romantic partner in the past that you need to stay away from because they just want to take from this great thing that you've established. They don't value you, they value what you can do for them. And this union, it's coming up reversed. It's not something that's going to support you, build you up. In fact, it's just going to leech from you and take away from, again, all of this fantastic stuff that's going on here. So, my friend, that is what I have for you today about you and your inner circle. What a wonderful, magical thing you have going. And let me just take a second. This is the house of Venus. This is the house of love. We make space for exactly this. So again, thank you so much for being here, for being in existence in this friend group and doing what you're doing, not just for these people, but for allowing me into it just for this moment, because it's really inspirational. It's really heartwarming. I have a friend group very much like this, and it's so nice to know that it's out there too. So thank you again so much for being here, for tuning into this reading, and for just being an incredible person. Godspeed, my friend. I will catch you on the next one. Bye. All right. Hello, Pile 2, and welcome to your reading on you and your inner circle. Before we get started, a couple of disclaimers. The first is that I cannot make up truths for you. That is not what my intention is with these readings. These readings is for you to get confirmations on what you already know, whether you're aware of that knowledge or not. So sometimes intuitively we can know something and we don't really know it physically or like rationally, mentally until we hear it, you know, in like one of these readings or through synchronicities or whatever. So if I say something that just isn't true for you at all, don't take it as me making predictions or revealing something to you that's out of your awareness. Again, that's not my intention here. That might just be for someone else who's tuning into this public general online reading. Which takes me to the second part, or the second disclaimer, which is I am a stranger online doing these readings for anybody to tune into. So I'm not at all equipped to give you any type of advice for you to make any type of decision with your life. I'm not any kind of professional. Again, I'm just a stranger on the internet, and only you have the power to make those decisions for yourself. A general tarot reading, and really any tarot reading, can help you to clear your mind or clear things up about what you're feeling or what you're thinking to help you make a better decision, but it can't make a decision for you. I can't do that for you either. So with those disclaimers out of the way, that I cannot make up truths for you and that I cannot make decisions for you, or that this shouldn't really be taken as advice as to what you should do with your life, but rather confirmation as to what you already want to do, what you know is right for you. Let's get into this reading. So, who are you in this friend group? You are kind of coming across as like baby brother, baby sister, baby sibling energy. Why? Because we start out with damsel, and it's coming up upwards with this deck. If the card comes up reversed, I read the shadow attribute, but it's coming up upwards. So we're reading the light attribute, which reads, understanding the nature of healthy romance inspires you to rely on yourself. And next to that, we have the Rebel. Now, the way that I'm kind of interpreting these two cards and the difference in these two decks is that with this one, I asked who you are to this friend group. And with this deck, I was asking what flows or what blossoms from you and your efforts in this friend group. So the Rebel. We'll get into how that answers the question of what you like, what blossoms from you and your efforts in this friend group. But what I'm getting from that with damsel and the Rebel, kind of like how the baby sibling has to kind of, or not has to, but very often does something to prove that they're not a little kid anymore, or they feel like they have to because of the way that they're regarded by their family or their friends, especially if you've been taken care of a lot. So this is about your inner circle, and this is, you know, it's about friends. That they could be about your family, definitely, if that's your inner circle. But if this is about your friend group, it could very well be that these are people who have known you a really long time, or B, have like such a long time that they've known you, like from when you were a little kid and you've like were all taken care of, you know, like as kids. And there might be something about that where like your friends saw that you needed some more direction, some more taking care of, or something like that. There was something about it that's like, it left an impression, and so they still see you as that little kid. And if it's not that, then B, I completely lost my track of thought, sorry. But with Rebel, the point of Rebel is you rebelling from the way that people regard you as this damsel, as someone who needs to be taken care of. And it could be that you're trying to prove to them that, but it could also be that you don't have any like you don't need to prove anything because you are an adult. You are someone who doesn't need, you're not that person anymore, if you ever were. And so you rebel from the way that people, your inner circle, kind of look at you. I'm gonna get to how this answers the question of like how you and your efforts blossoms this rebel energy. It just to kind of a spoiler alert, I guess, is that like that rebellion, that you rebelling from the way that people look at you and you not accepting those things is a good thing. It is sending the proper message. That's what I'm getting from that, to answer that question. But to get into these cards here, as to, because these two cards answer who you are in the friend group. These three cards answer what the friend group is, what I can know about the friend group, basically, in regards to you and your efforts. We have Fred here, and the thing is that damsel, if you know Scooby-Doo, Fred is like usually in the classics, the guy with the plan, and he's the guy who's always saving Daphne. I mean, it's a core effort, you know, group effort, but for the most part, he's regarded as the hero who's saving the damsel. Again, they've really, not that I'm headers, but they've diverted from that in the more modern interpretations. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd. Anyways, moving on. Fred here really does tell me that whether it's one person in your inner circle or the inner circle as a core, they feel like you're Fred. They feel like, whether it's been in the past or in the present, whatever the case is, they feel that they've had to take care of you or rescue you, or, you know, there's that exists within the friend group. And so that's where this image of damsel comes from. It's because they've regarded you in the past or in the present as a damsel, as someone who needs rescuing, and they regard themselves, whether it's the whole friend group or again just an individual, they regard themselves as your hero, as your friend, as someone who has rescued you or can. Kindergarten is a past that's really hard to shake, that is really hard to, it dictates so much of your present and how you look at yourself and how you move and maneuver through your life. I mean, that's true for like all of our childhoods, right? Like our childhoods determine what we do in our present. But kindergarten specifically is about something that's in your face all the time that you really wish wasn't, or that it impacts the way that you feel about yourself. And it's really hard to shake no matter what you do. And it very well might be something that your inner circle is blind to. Whether it's because you're not vocal about it, or you are and it's not regarded, it's not really taken seriously. So this damsel energy, the people, the way that your inner group looks at you as someone who needs to be rescued and that they're your rescuer, that's something that's kind of hard ingrained into the bedrock of your relationship. And it's hard to shake. It's hard to get out of it. Kingston Mansion here at the end, the thing about it is that it's the location for the introduction part of the show, so it's usually at the beginning, but it's here at the end. What I'm getting from that specifically, this card that's usually, it's meant to be at the beginning, but it's showing up at the end, it kind of gives me this idea of a cycle continuing, how we reach the end, but we're back at the beginning. Within this inner core group that we're talking about, you're going to continue to rebel, and it'll send the right message. But so far, it's just been this cycle that's been hard to break out of. But the thing is, why I'm so positive, why I'm saying that it is going to send the right message, is because although these three cards are definitely picking up on that energy of the way things are set in stone and it's really difficult to shake off, these two cards up here are very positive in regards to what we're talking about with these three cards. Because damsel, although yeah, sure, damsel in distress, no one wants to be that, it came up upwards. It came up as the best interpretation. And in fact, the words again read, inspires you to rely on yourself. And rebel, also read as rebel, it's rebellion to the status quo. And that's a good thing because the status quo sucks. So to rebel is a good thing. And the fact that I can't ignore it, just it keeps on just, it's so highlighted to me, inspires, it's inspirational. So it could very well be that you rebelling from this energy, from the way that this inner circle operates and looks at you, it could well be that you inspire one individual here, like in you doing that, where it's impressive. It could be that you inspire them to be like, huh, like they're right. The way that things operate here aren't right. And we kind of do need a refresher and looking at each other as we are now and not as we have been in the past. And in that way, you're not just inspiring one individual, but you're affecting the core group. You're affecting everyone. You're affecting the group as a whole by rebelling from the status quo, and therefore by rebelling against it, creating that discomfort there, pointing it out, that there is a discomfort to be had and that it needs to be addressed. So with these cards specifically that I'm getting here, there's really nothing to note that like that's what's going to happen, that that's the outcome. You know, that everyone's going to see that what they've been doing is wrong and you rebelling against it is going to solve all the problems, right? That's the best outcome, you know, and I'm definitely fingers crossed for you, you know, but what I'm definitely picking up on here is that you are meant to rebel from the status quo. You are not meant to just accept the way that they look at you, whether that's been true in the past that you've had to be taken care of or rescued or whatever the case is. And even if you still need that caring now, that doesn't mean that you aren't worthy of respect today and autonomy and, you know, holding your own place, not as someone who needs saving, but as someone who's an equal. So yeah, take whatever resonates for you, whatever part of that was true for you, and let's move into the advice on the matter. Okay, so the advice on the matter. We're going to start with the Lenormand cards down here because they do act as a foundation to what's being set up here. And let me just say that that was true also for the first pile, which is interesting because in the past, it doesn't matter. But it's interesting because in the past, I've usually interpreted the tarot first, and then because the Lenormand usually feels like an echo of what's being said here. But with this reading, the Lenormand cards are acting as a foundation, which is nice. So we start with Fox, and Fox is an energy that's like quick and cunning and intentional. So kind of like a fox is, right? They're quick and they're cunning. To move quick, you have to be cunning, otherwise you're gonna fuck up. And you know this to be true if you've had to do anything really fast without messing up. You know, like the faster you go, you just have to like focus harder, or it's easier to mess up. So if you're gonna move fast, you have to be quick, you have to be cunning so that you don't make a misstep. Garden is traditionally like public energy. So something that can be regarded by everyone, something that's visible, something that's again visible to all, visible to the public. In regards to this reading, I'm not really seeing it as like you doing something quick and cunning that's visible to everybody in the world, but it's definitely coming through here as something that's visible to your inner group, the people that we've been talking about so far. Ring, despite the imagery here, ring is traditionally about like it shows what looks like an engagement ring to give that idea of a commitment, something, a contract, something that's long held. I'm interpreting it here as the entering or the promotion of a relationship from one thing into something higher, more elevated, more intentional. Definitely not regarding it as like you're going to get proposed to. That could be true, but I'm not getting that. Rather, that through your work, your relationships there are some relationships that can be taken to the next level because of who you have become or are becoming. And that's what the tarot gets into. But the advice being that you need to, it's not that you need to, but rather you making use of your cunning, whatever that is. It could be that you're very intelligent. It could be that you're very intuitive. It could be both. Whatever it is, there's something that you're called to do that you know to do. Do that. And in doing so, in doing this thing that you know to do and being good at it and excelling at it and mastering it, practicing it, developing it, it'll turn into this thing that you can just hold and it shows. Let's take an example, just a very simple example, but it demonstrates exactly what I'm talking about. Let's say you get into working out, like for no other reason than that you just like it. And so it's something that you get into. And so it's something that you're good at. It's something that it's a hobby that you're getting into. It could be like a sport, right? And what develops from that is like athleticism. You are in great shape, you feel healthy, you look great, whatever the case is. And so this is a transformation that's very physically visible. It's something that is you're demonstrating very easily. That's garden energy. So taking that fox energy and turning it into something that's very visible, something that you can carry and just kind of show off without any effort, really. And in doing so, in you proving that thing and you developing this, not proving, but in you developing this thing that's yours and, shows off your strengths and who you are, that's what's gonna show these people, and that's why I keep on coming back to that word of proving. It shows these people in your inner circle that you aren't who you have been, and that's what elevates those relationships, or a relationship, if it's not all salvageable, to an elevated state where they are respecting you and no longer regarding you as someone that they need to rescue, but someone like them, someone equal. So we start with the Four of Coins, and the Four of Pentacles is an energy of like holding onto, clinging onto, really giving me that energy of where we were getting with the three cards regarding the inner circle, where things are set in stone and it's really hard to break those cycles, right? That's definitely what I'm getting with the Four of Coins, where the way that things stand, pentacles, everyday, physical energy, the way that things are in the everyday realm, it's something that's grasped onto, whether intentionally or not, because sometimes people are so afraid of change that they do everything in their power to like make sure nothing changes. And then sometimes it's just not so intentional, where it's just normalized behavior, normalized habits, and it's just, that's what's held on to. Whatever the case is, the Four of Coins here at the very beginning, as advice, it's pointing it out so that you're aware that it is something that's grasped onto, and that it's going to help you to become aware of what kind of grasping that is, kind of like how I mentioned earlier. Like, is it the type of is this all being maintained because there is someone or there are people who are intentionally making sure that nothing changes? And if that's the case, that's a little bit sinister, because what that means is that they're intentionally making sure that you are staying as a damsel, that they are staying as a hero to you. They want you to stay kind of dependent on them. And that's something that, you're being advised to be aware of. And if it's not that, then it'll help you to be aware that it might not be intentional, that it's just, habitual thinking, that they're not super aware of it. And that might bring you some relief to understand that they're not trying to be assholes. It's just that they don't know how else to regard you, because so far they've only seen you as someone that needs to be taken care of. And so you doing your work, you demonstrating, you developing this thing that you know to do is what's going to help to kind of help loosen that grip a little bit, regardless of what's coming through for you for the Four of Coins. Again, whether it's intentional or not. The Ace of Swords, I mean, we have the Gordian knot here. That's literally what this card is alluding to. And the Gordian knot is cut through. It's this knot that is so tight and nothing can unloosen it, and it's like standing in the way of this hero in his great quest. And so this hero takes this grand sword and cuts straight through the Gordian knot. This allegory for sometimes you just need brute force to cut through a conundrum, to cut through an obstacle. Because I think part of the Gordian knot is that some deity had, decreed it that only the person who could untangle it could get through. I could be making that up. I might be wrong about that. But the point being that, fuck that, let's just cut through it. Brute force. And that being connected to that rebel energy we were getting earlier, where you're saying, no, fuck that, I don't want to do that. I'm cutting through that. I don't accept this status quo. I'm going to break away, kind of how this is you being held here by this status quo, by this home, the way that things operate. And the Ace of Swords is you taking that sort of kind of cutting away from that and being like, no, I don't accept that. I don't want any part of that. The Ace of Swords is also a new way of thinking, right? Because it's the ace, new way of thinking, swords. And so that definitely points to you're rebelling, the way that the things that you're doing in rebelling against that status quo is the introduction of a new way of thinking to this pool of the inner circle of their way of thinking, this thing that's hard to break out of. This new way, you're introducing this new way of thinking to this way of thinking that's always been the way that it is. Now, we get to the Hermit, which is smack in the center. And I do remember when I was putting down the cards that this card specifically was at the bottom of the deck. Why that's significant is because the Hermit is all about solitude, and specifically about moving into solitude away from people, away from, people in general or a group of people. Hermitude, shutting away from the public. And it's funny because Garden is also traditionally about the public. So there might be something about you might very well need to get away from not just this inner circle, but people in general. There might be some ways of thinking that you are carrying that are so ingrained in you because of the people that you surrounded yourself by. Yes, it is very possible for everybody in your life to suck because you've lived a sheltered life or whatever the case is, and it is possible that you've yet to meet the people who are more aligned with who it is that you are. And that's definitely something that I'm getting from the Hermit, because it's intentional solitude. And beyond that, it's the moving away from people because those people are influencing you in the wrong ways, and you become aware of that, and so you seek that hermitude in order to heal yourself, but also to elevate yourself, to gain a wisdom that you can only gain away from these negative influences, these negative impacts that this group has on you. Now, it doesn't necessarily always have to be about it being a nefarious thing where the people in this group or a person in this group are intentionally trying to keep you down. Again, it's your task to figure that out. And if it is, then yeah, the Hermit is definitely saying intentionally move away from this because it's not good for you. But if it's not that, it's an unhealthy thing where someone's intentionally trying to keep you down, and it's just more normalized, it's just something that they're not fully aware of, then the Hermit is saying that you do need to move away from it because these people will not change. these people cannot change, and it is going to benefit you to move away where you're not being you're not being impacted by these people, because you know deep down that they're just keeping you down, that your efforts here aren't really they're not really changing anything, because the group or someone in the group who has control isn't really ready to accept that yet. And so there is something to you moving away, and that could be literal, right? Where you're moving away and, not being in these people's proximity, but it could also just be you withdrawing your energy, withdrawing your time and your resources for some time or however long, with the intention of, again, de-influencing yourself from the way that these people impact you, because of the way that they look at you. That being said, the rest of the cards kind of depict the result of that, because the Five of Wands upwards definitely talks about a conflict, and it's not a conflict that's like bloody and, that ends relationships, but rather just a conflict that's noticeable, one that kind of like a debate, where a debate has certain rules, and so it's never going to be hostile. Even if those people don't like each other, it's meant to be, okay, let's all just put everything that we think on the table and then come to the most rational conclusion. And although Wands definitely might not be rational energy, the Five of Wands is definitely conflict, but that conflict in which everyone involved is showing restraint and respect for everyone involved. And reversed, it's not that it negates that respect and consideration that everyone has, but rather I'm regarding the Five of Wands reversed as a lack of conflict. So where here in the beginning, there's this thing and this friend, the way that your inner circle is looking at you, it's kind of oppressive, and you presenting this new way of thinking that is rebelling and breaking away from this way of thinking. 4 + 1 is 5, and we have the Five of Wands over here on the other side of the Hermit. The result of this rebelling against the status quo isn't one of conflict. That's why the Five of Wands is coming up reversed. It's a comfort. It's kind of letting you know, like, it's not going to come across as abrasive as you might be worried it's going to be. Where you might be worried that in you rebelling, if you keep this up, if you don't acclimate to the status quo, back to the status quo, that you might lose these relationships, might be an example, or that it's going to cause a conflict that might, that you might not want to deal with if you're not like super confrontational. Whatever the case is, the Five of Wands is definitely reversed. The Five of Wands reversed is definitely saying that you're safe in this group, even if, like, whether there's people in this group that are intentionally trying to keep you down or not. Even if that's true, you rebelling against it isn't going to end these relationships. In fact, we move into the Moon reverse, which is also reversed. You doing so might reveal the wrongdoings, whether it's just to you or just the wrongdoings in the way that things operate in this inner circle. Because the Moon upwards is all about illusions. So the Moon reversed is about those illusions shattered. So the work that you're doing in rebelling and cutting away from the way that things are and the way that things hold you intentionally moving away from those things to de-influence yourself and build yourself up alone and de-influenced, it'll present to this group not conflict, but a shattering of illusions that's necessary. And that's what elevates whether the whole friend group or just you and some individuals, and to this elevated state where you can take the relationship that you currently have into one where, okay, everybody gets what's going on. The way that we were looking at you in the past, that can no longer be true because you are no longer that person. Or you never were, and now that's regarded. And if it's not that, the shattering of illusions is meant for this group. If what's meant for in this hermitude is for you to stay away from this inner circle that we've been talking about so far, the elevation that we're talking about, ring here, and the shattering of illusions here, might be the illusion that you have to stay in this friend group. It could be, and you're going to have to decide if this is true for you or not. It could be that in the future, you're meant to cut away from this friend group because they're not going to break out of those cycles. And you're meant to take what you've learned and move into new cycles with new people that are going to respect and regard you as who it is that you are. That's really heavy, and honestly, when you know that, like, whether this friend group is whether they're worthy of you and your time and your effort of your friendship. If they are, great. What you're doing is definitely meant to demonstrate to this friend group that what's been going on isn't right. So keep on doing that. But if it's not, and when you're honest with yourself, you start to realize that nothing you do is ever going to change this friend group and or this inner circle and the dynamic there, then take your strength, take yourself and your fantastic self out of there and place yourself where you are going to be better regarded. Again, better respected. My friend, I hope this helped. All of my love. Godspeed. I will catch you on the next one. Bye. Hello, Pile 3, and welcome to this reading on you and your inner circle. Now, before we get started, a couple of disclaimers. The first is that I cannot make up truths for you. If anything that I say is simply not true about you, that does not mean that I'm making predictions or revealing something to you that's out of your awareness. Rather, what should be said is should be a confirmation of what you internally know. So if I am saying something that's new, it should ring true. Like, you should be agreeing with it. Like, yes, that makes total sense because of these things that are going on. So if, again, I say something that just isn't true, don't take it as a truth. It might just be for someone else who's picking up on this reading. That doesn't negate the rest of the reading for you. The second disclaimer is that I am in no way, shape, or form to be giving you advice with these readings. Decisions, the autonomy of your life, that's all up to you. And if anything, a tarot reading can help you clarify what it is that you're feeling and thinking so that you are better equipped to make that decision. But that has to come down to you. I can't do that for you. These readings can't do that for you. So again, I cannot make up truths for you. I cannot make decisions for you. That being said, let's get into your reading. Now, you are a very good friend. The Fool next to the Advocate. The Fool is, and it's light attribute because it's coming up upwards. If it were to come up reversed, then we'd be reading the shadow attribute. The light attribute of the Fool reads, fearlessly revealing emotion, helping people laugh at absurdity and hypocrisy. So yeah, sure, it could be that you're very funny, that you have this sense of humor that can, like, disarm people and really lighten the mood. That could be true. But what's true across the board, what I'm very much getting from this card, is the fearless part, where there's a courage to the way that you move and you do things that enables other people to move in that way. You create a space where it's necessary for other people to move and explore in ways that they would not otherwise move or explore, move towards or explore. So the way that you do things, like the Fool in tarot, is so different and so brave, and so it reveals to people that it's like, oh, I didn't realize you could move that way. Paired with the Advocate is this energy of, standing up for someone, for individuals. There's a trust that you place in someone to advocate for you. So yeah, you could be funny and you're also very brave and fearless, but your inner circle trusts you with your decisions. They trust the way that you hold space for them. It could just be that they trust you. But there could also very well be that, like, you are the type of person who's going to be standing up for, like, what's right, or you could be like an actual advocate, like if you could be a lawyer or a oh my god, what the fuck is the word that I'm thinking of? A protester? Protester is definitely like a part of, it's not, oh my God. I guess, yeah, advocate is the word, right? Like when you're really into something and you're passionate about to defend it, like when you're all of, like really environmentally friendly, like you're an advocate for those things, right? Yeah, I think whatever. Anyways, the point is, you not only are you fearless, but you're also willing to stand up for what it is that you believe in. And if it's not that, then you're just, the way that you stand up for your friends, the way that you stand up for people is just like something that's really admirable, something that's really regarded about you within your inner circle. So these two cards up here, these are you within the inner circle. This card here being who you are to the inner circle. This card here being what blossoms from you and your efforts, your presence in this inner circle. So the Fool gives me that fearless energy. The Advocate gives me that energy of the space that you create, that safety net, that trust that you create in order for people to move honestly the way that you do. So it's not that they're doing exactly what you do, but like the way that you think and move really creates new avenues. And it's just like, oh, like I didn't, we can think in other ways. I don't know. Like it just, the Advocate really just gives me that idea beyond it being, yeah, sure, you could be an advocate for something. You could be very passionate about something. That could be true. Across the board, what's true for all of you is that the Advocate is picking up on the safe spaces that you create for your inner circle, that trust that you create, that they have for you. That's what's really regarded about you in your inner circle. These three cards down here are describing the inner circle itself with treats, which is like Scooby snacks, right? Sure, there's a specific meaning to what the Scooby snacks are in the show, which is like a motivational thing to get someone to do something they don't want to do. To kind of, it's not so much that you're making people do what they don't want to do or enticing them to do those things, but to take in them that idea of like the Fool, where that fearless energy, where your fearlessness enables people to move in ways that they wouldn't otherwise move. Kind of like a Scooby snack entices Scooby and Shaggy to do things they wouldn't otherwise do. And for their cases, like they don't want to do it because like they're in danger, right? But that I'm not, I don't think that that's true. In your situation, it's rather that, yeah, one thing I'm getting definitely is that you're a treat. You are regarded as a treat in your friend group. But beyond that, there's something about you and your presence that it's like, okay, yeah, doing those things that seem scary aren't that bad. Kind of like how for Shaggy and Scooby, them being the bait, it's not that bad because they have the snack. And sure, like in our minds and our logical minds, that might not be a good trade-off. But for these two who love to eat, that is a good trade-off. So like, let's say, for example, this is a very random example. And I'm not making up truth for you. This is just an example. Let's say you come out and now you're expressing yourself as you are, you're living as you are, and you're being, you're exploring, you're trying to be as honest as possible. And your friend group sees this and it's like, oh my God, they are being so brave and being themselves. And you activate something in them that it's like, I want to try this thing. And it might not be that like their sexuality, but it could be like they've always been afraid to pursue, I don't know, archery for whatever reason. And now because you're being so brave about this great thing, it gives them the bravery, the motivation, the enticement to pursue this thing that they've always been afraid to pursue because you're being so fearless about it. Again, just a random example. But to give you an idea, the way that you're moving is motivational. Beach House is a home, and this is how they feel about you. It's that trust that's built because of the way that you're moving, the way that you're fearless, and the way that on top of that fearlessness, Advocate is also giving me like how gung-ho you are about this inner circle. Like where it concerns your inner circle, you're going to stand up and say something. And that safety for people, you create that safety in people where it's like, I know that with this person, I'm always going to be advocated for. I'm always going to be safe. And they're fearless. This friend, you're fearless. So this that fearlessness attached to that trust that people have for you, it creates this sense of stability and, again, safety, comfort, a sense of home that you're providing for this for your inner circle. It could also be that this inner circle, you guys could live together. It could be like a roommate situation, or you have lived together, whether it's like you guys go on vacations or you're living together in those short amounts of time. Whatever the case is, you provide a sense of sanctuary, of home, of stability with what it is that you're doing. Diamond communicator. What I'm getting from it is definitely that direct communication. And one of the keywords here is explosive. So it's not that you're explosive and that you could be the type of person who's like very confrontational and can pop off whenever you need to. That could be why you make people feel safe, and that could be you advocating for people where you get into it and you communicate directly about what it is that you're advocating about. So you could be very explosive about that, where not so much violent or abrasive, those things could be true, but just effective in the way that you communicate what it is that you're advocating for. Whether that's your friends, your belief systems, whatever it is, that's very much regarded within this friend group. Another thing that I'm getting from this card is that you're very effective in communicating with your inner circle, and that is very important. Like the way that you communicate directly, bluntly, boldly, if any of those things, are just the way that you communicate. If it's not any of those things, it comes across as very direct, and its impact, there's an impact to the way that you communicate. It changes things, or it reveals to people like, oh, I didn't realize you could communicate that way, or that's a really good way to communicate that. Like I didn't, I'm going to try to start doing that. Like there's, again, something in the way that you move that's very impactful, very direct, and it holds impactful in the way that it's regarded by your inner circle, and it changes something, whether it's a change that they, start to practice, or just it's an awareness of a new way of doing things, the way that you do things. Okay. All of that being said, and this is really great energy, by the way, like, congratulations to you. You're so powerful. You're so strong. What a pleasure to have you here. Very curious to see what the advice for you is, since you really seem to be someone you already seem to be the advice giver. I'm immediately focusing on how the first 3 words of advocate are the first 3 words of advice. So I don't really, I was going to say, I don't really know why you're here, but obviously you're here because you were called to be here, and you haven't clicked off yet, so I know you're here because you feel called to be here. But rather, it's just that, like, you're probably someone who people go to for advice, and you're probably very used to being the person who dispenses wisdom, which I completely understand why you're here, because sometimes you want someone else to dispense that wisdom. So thank you for being here. Glad to have you. So let's put these away, and then I'll bring out the tarot cards and we can get into the advice. Okay, so there's point blank, the advice is that there are relationships that you definitely need to move away from. Now, I don't really know if, actually no, the thing is that the advice is directly attached to this inner circle, right? So whether it's the entirety of the inner circle, or people in this inner circle, or a person in this inner circle, you definitely need to move away from, because you've outgrown them, basically. Why am I saying that? There's a lot of ending energy. Why? Because we have 2 cards here that depict relationships. The 3 of Cups, which is all about friendships, or just people in communion, and the lovers, which is lovers, both of these cards coming up reversed. So relationships being negated in a reading about your inner circle. Hammock is this deck's iteration of Coffin, which is all about an ending. So there's 3 cards right there, bam, all about putting things to a close. And this spread, this part of the reading specifically, being about advice in regards to your inner circle. So there is something about your inner circle, someone, whether it's all of it or part of it, that you need to move away from and close out and leave in the past because you've outgrown it. Why do I keep saying that? Because we start with the 3 of Cups, which again is about like people in communion. Definitely friendship is what comes up. And so then reversed, it's the friendship not being a positive thing, not being something that's contributing to your growth. And the thing is that we have 3 and 7 of Cups, which collectively put, like, you add them up to 10, which is the totality of cups that we can have. And one portion of it is reversed, and the rest of it, the 7 of Cups, isn't super positive, because the 7 of Cups upwards is clouded judgment because of what we've got going on emotionally. When there's so much to process, whether emotionally or mentally, whatever the case is, there's so much to process or pour over or think about that we lose kind of focus on the important things, or there's something about clouded judgment because of these relationships that aren't really contributing to your growth. And in response to that, at the center, the Hermit, which is about solitude and moving away from people in order to elevate, in order to gain certain wisdom that can only come through when you are away from people and influenced by the people that you're around currently. So clouded judgment because of this reversed relationship energy, and the response to that being solitude away from all of those things in order to kind of clarify that lack of clarity that we're talking about in the 7 of Cups. And that clarity only being possible in solitude and away, like we've been saying with these 3 cards of endings, like away from, again, whether it's the entirety of the inner circle or a part of it. What's interesting is that the cards that are upwards, the tarot cards that are upwards, are both 9 cards, and they're the highest number because 3 was reversed and 7 is less than 9 and 6 is also less. So that's where I was getting that idea of you outgrowing these things. Like, you're being represented by 9 while your friends or the inner circle or a part of it are being represented by smaller numbers than you. So it could be, and only take this if this is true, that you've reached a point where the conversations that you're trying to have, this inner circle can't have with you, or part of it can't have with you, just because they just don't know about those things, or they're just not interested in those things. It could be that you're starting to realize that the people that you surround yourself with, or someone in that group, isn't fully aligned with how you think. And while that might have been acceptable in the past, as you're growing older and maturing, you're realizing that you can't really make space for that anymore. Whatever the case is, there's this idea of you're in this space where you've elevated, you've matured, you've grown, whatever the case is, and your inner circle or someone in it, a part of it, isn't growing with you. They haven't grown with you. They're just not up to par with where you're at. They're not keeping up, so to speak. And so you're being advised to put those things to an end. Both with the Hermit being front and center and that being about seeking hermitude, being alone, and the 9 of Cups at the very end being about joy, about pure happiness that comes from that solitude and from the negation of the relationships that are clouding your judgment. Lenormand takes that idea of the endings of, again, whether it's the entirety of the inner circle or just part of it, and moving intentionally, quickly, cunningly away from it. But understanding that this movement, it's not about being careless. It's not about being like, well, fuck these people or this person, you know, like, let's just leave him and never think about them again. No, it's not. They're part of your inner circle for a reason, so this isn't going to be easy, and it's not meant to be. And that this is probably why you've put up with it for so long, is because you recognize how difficult it's going to be to move away from people or a person who you've had in your life for so long, and moving away from them because, you know, of something internal. Because a lot of people function from a place where, like, if something doesn't happen in the physical realm, like, you know, you got into a fight or something actually happened, then there's no reason to move away, like, for you guys not to be friends. Like, if some people don't really validate an internal transformation as a just reason to end a relationship. Like, some people just do not operate that way, and that could not be true. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way for you, but there's the pumpkins is this deck's response to cross, which is something heavy to bear, something that requires our effort and our strength, something that's difficult to take on. And so this ending, this movement away from these things, it's not meant to be easy. So be like, although this is heavy advice and energy, this card to me feels like it's meant to come across as a comfort, as a confirmation to you that, like, it's okay that you're struggling with this, because this is a friend. This is someone who's part of your inner circle. So of course you want to put in the effort to maintain it. And, you know, sometimes there is a hope that people will change with us and grow with us and keep up with us. But sometimes, and like it's being shown here, that's not the case. Sometimes we are meant to outgrow people and, in essence, leave them behind because they're not growing. They've demonstrated that they just aren't getting it. And again, it's not that people have to do things the way that you do it, or that people aren't valid just because they don't agree with you or they're not where you're at. It's not that these people suck. They could, and that could be why you're being advised to move away from them. I'm not getting that from these cards, but what is being advised is that it's okay for you to prioritize yourself and your growth and your whatever it is that's calling you to move away from whatever relationship or relationships you're being called to end and move away from. And it's okay that it's difficult to do so. Like, I think that's a good thing, because it just shows that you're not an asshole. You're not just leaving inconsiderately. They might take it that way, depending on how mature these people are, but that's not really important. What's important is you and your growth and your enlightenment, and that you continue to grow, and that you don't diminish yourself, that you don't stagnate yourself for the sake of people who are very clearly smaller than you. And that's not to say that you're better than them. It's just that you're somewhere else than they are, and it's time to accept that and to make the proper moves in accordance to that truth. Really heavy stuff, but it's clearly evident that you're ready for this truth. So congratulations and Godspeed. I really hope that this helped.